welcome to Curbside Chat. I'm your host, Lorraine Sommerfeld. Curbside Chat is brought to you by AIA Canada and their partners. It's a chance for us to speak to experts on the ground about the ever-changing auto care sector. I'm joined today by Jim Bethune. He's the partner in CARSTAR Collision Centers in 3 different provinces, and Greg Wing, Director of Strategic Partnerships at Simplicity Car Care. Welcome to both of you today.
Thank you for having us.
Jim, you've been in this industry for decades and in various parts of the country on top of that. What would you say is the biggest shift or change you've seen in the past decade?
The role of the insurance company. I think they have a bigger influence on the repair and what collision owners have to do. There's always been a complex transaction because you're always dealing with 2 customers, but the insurance companies have much more influence. Technology has allowed them to do that. They can really, almost on a per store basis, per claim basis, assess what's going on, and that gives them a lot more ability to influence the industry, I believe.
Greg, much of the auto world is shifting towards consolidations and partnerships, a lot of smaller shops being, bought up. What role does this play in collision repair specifically?
Well, consolidation is really the way that the industry is going. We've seen it probably over the last 20 years, and it's really kicked up a gear, I think, even in the last 5 years. We've seen a lot of smaller shops, smaller independent shops not be able to hold on. And a big part of the reason is what Jim talked about here with insurance. Insurance companies want to make one phone call to solve 100 problems instead of 100 phone calls to solve one problem. So that's why they call me. That's why they call my other competitors in the industry because of ease of working with insurance companies. And consolidation allows that. So it allows us to reach, the insurance company, I think right now, they're able to direct about 84% of their entire book of claims. So when they make a recommendation for somebody to use a shop, about 84% of those recommendations are accepted by the end user. So they control a large portion of where the work goes in this country. And consolidation allows for insurance companies to work closer with stores, solve more problems, but also consolidation works in cutting costs. You have lower HR costs when you consolidate, accounting costs. Jim, you've got 15 to 20 shops across the country. You're far more efficient running those shops with your accounting, with your HR, with your management than you are if you had one individual shop having all of those different departments.
You're absolutely right. I think that's a really important point. I think there's a generational aspect as to why people are selling, as well as pressure from insurance companies. And then our ability, your ability, others in the industry to acquire and consolidate. A lot of it is to do with consolidating or crunching the admin and becoming much more paperless to take the cost out of the admin side. Because the insurance companies are also forcing the actual collision margins down a bit too. And so, for us to be successful in the medium to long term, we basically, as Greg said, we've got to focus on the below the gross margin line. And a lot of that is administration, how to do it more efficiently, how to do it cheaper, and he's right. That's where the industry is going.
Yeah.
Jim, we spoke earlier and you mentioned that there is, to stay competitive, collision repair has to be bigger and centralized. What about the independents? And this is from a consumer point of view. I love my independent techs. Are they still viable? Are we going to see the rest of the industry go this way, or is this specific to the collision repair? Where's the health for both sides of this?
Yeah, I think the automotive side, which I've also played in a lot too, is a little different than the collision side. I think the independent technician on the automotive side has a little bit more runway to stay independent right now than on the collision side. The cost of the barrier for growth is cost as well. We're all spending more money per year on equipment now in the collision business than we ever have. And I don't see that stopping. I think that's going to keep increasing. So that's another barrier for the small guy. But on the automotive side, I think the challenges they're not there yet. They may come, but the smaller shops can continue. But collision, I think he's right. When the insurers are able to direct 84% of the business, they're not going to really direct it to an independent unless they have to. And there are still a few places in Canada that, whether it's us or Simplicity or the big banners, we haven't covered them yet. So the insurance companies have to deal with independents, not because they want to, in my opinion.
Okay, I appreciate
The, the
the
banners
distinction.
give,
Go ahead.
sorry, the banners give a an opportunity for independent shops to stay independent, yet work inside a conglomerate. We have close to 100 shops, and only a couple of them own multiple shops, so they're able to work inside a conglomerate like ours. And I know that the other banners in the country, the CSN, Fix, CARSTAR, we're all very good at what we do, and we give opportunities to different size shops and different abilities for different owners to be part of a conglomerate, to be part of a consolidation, yet still keeping their independent, locally owned. It's like if you go to a Montana's restaurant, right? That's a brand, that's a national chain, yet it's locally owned and locally operated. And those people in the small city that I live in of Airdrie, Alberta, those people are very involved in the community. They're involved in the golf tournaments. They're involved in the boys and girls clubs and things like that. So being part of a network banner, like Simplicity, um, gives independence stores the opportunity to stay independent and work inside their community and still be that shop, Lorraine, that you want to go to, that's always been there, the mom and pop shop. Yet they have, a team that works for them as a consolidator to have other options to do. So the industry has really changed over the last, really 10 to 15 years. The consolidation in Canada started about 20 years ago, and we're starting to see it in the US now. Consolidation in the US is about where Canada was, in my opinion, about 15 years ago. But I think they're going to catch up to us over the next 5 years. They're going to be moving very rapidly there too.
Jim,
I think to further emphasize what Greg's saying, I think it's also happening differently in parts of Canada. Some parts of Canada have moved much more quickly than others. Like Maritimes, for example, they're just getting started in a lot of ways with the pressures of a consolidation. Ontario and Alberta have been way ahead of the game. BC to a certain degree as well. A lot of our stores are in Manitoba. MPI wasn't too concerned about consolidation until about 3 or 4 years ago. And then they basically made huge changes. So it's happening very quickly in Manitoba now. So it's kind of, even though we speak about Canada, you actually have to almost look by region, and it's different.
I guess population.
Yeah, very good point.
Sorry.
I just agree. That's a very good point. And a lot of that has to do with public insurance versus private insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to do it. Greg,
Greg also said something else that's important. The industry needs entrepreneurship, to your point, Lorraine. Like, yes, we own our stores, but we really empower our store managers to be entrepreneurs. That's another part of our success. And then we're growing. That's what we're trying to do, because we need them to be focused on the customer, even though the insurance company is heavily involved. We need them to be focused on the community as a whole. We have to be good partners, and so we need entrepreneurs running our stores, even though in many cases we own them 100%. But it's important. We want entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Greg, I want to pivot just a little bit. Vehicles are becoming increasingly more difficult or complex to repair. How is this translating into the people tasked with doing these repairs? How has the landscape shifted with the rapidly evolving tech?
Well, I had a business partner of mine about 20 years ago tell me that the currency of the future is information, and that information comes through training and education. And I think that's going to be the answer. Yeah, these cars are getting more and more complicated. Training is going to be a bigger part of all collision centers. Insurance companies are demanding it. Consumers are demanding it. When consumers are walking in and wanting to know about what equipment is there and what technology is there and are you certified to work on my car? Those are all things that are becoming very, very important. We all know that the hardest part about fixing a car right now is finding the person to fix it. That is the most difficult part across the country, and I would say probably in most parts of the world. That's the hardest part. So the technology change. Listen, parts are getting more expensive. Computers to recalibrate those parts are getting more expensive. Staffing is going to have to be better trained, and we're going to have to start automating even more. And this is where consolidation comes in. If you can train 50 stores at a time versus one store or 5 stores, the costs are going to be lower. You're going to get more bang for your buck. The secret is education, and it's not It's not a secret sauce that I'm sharing or anything like that. People are going to have to be better educated and better trained to work on these cars coming. And that's going to cause a whole new set of problems with how much we can pay them, how much we get paid. But listen, that's a 3-hour conversation outside of this.
Jim, similar challenges?
Oh, absolutely agree. Training is so important. I would also add the computer training in general is so important now. There's a basic minimum skill requirement, whether it's a person in the back shop or up front, that they've got to have a certain level of computer experience. Otherwise, you're training that too. And so that alone is another challenge to the industry. If you got an older technician, for example, it's the kind of person that only uses email, well, they're really going to struggle these days. You probably have to somehow get them focused so they upgrade their computer skills just to be able to survive. I think that's important.
Greg?
We have an aging population inside our staff across the country, and unfortunately, we have a lot less people coming into the industry to start their training and to take their journeyman. And unfortunately, half of the people that start their apprenticeship never finish, which is a real problem that we need to start focusing on. But I mean, again, this is a bigger problem, right? We look at the time it takes, what the pay is versus some other options that are out there to go and get your trades. Is we're competing. We're not just competing. We're competing with every other industry that creates trades for people, and we need to create a trades teaching and I can't, for some reason, I just can't pull the right words out of my brain to say this, but we have to be more competitive when it comes to schooling our younger people to bring them into the industry. We need to create better programs, better training, better options for them to make a living quicker than what some of the other plumbers, electricians, oil industry that we deal with in Western Canada day in, day out are offering.
Greg, wouldn't you also say that the look and feel of the store has to be much different than it used to be? Because those coming into the industry, they don't want to walk into that sleepy looking old dark facility that we used to all have. Now it's got to be bright, airy, it's got to be windows. In some cases, music has to be playing. We got to be much more flexible as employers. If the person's got to take their child to a hockey game at 3 o'clock on a Friday, they're expecting to go now. You got to find ways to deal with that.
100%. And they want to work on all the newest and nicest equipment that they're using in school.
It's like dentistry.
If they walk in and the weld, you got one welder, and it's I think it fixed the arc when Noah made it. The odds of them wanting to work there are going to be slim to none. They want the new toys. They want the equipment that makes their life easier, that allows them more billable hours, so that they can make up the difference between their $28 an hour paycheck and somebody who's in mechanics making $36 an hour paycheck. They want to make up the hours.
If I ever needed proof of that, we built a brand new big store in Manitoba, in Winnipeg last year from ground up. And it meant that we really did a nice job, brand new equipment, everything. We had a lineup of technicians that wanted to come and work. To this day, we have no trouble finding staff. They love the place. High ceilings, big windows, all brand new stuff.
Music?
Everything's connected. I tell you, we have a lineup.
Greg, talk to me a little bit about the role of efficiency and how that has ramped up really quickly over the past few years. How are we making this collision repair more efficient?
Yeah, you know what? That's probably the key to success. And we've touched on efficiency. We touched on it when you have multiple stores being able to do better accounting, right? That's efficiency in accounting. But really, where the efficiency is going to come into is in process. And the average touch time I read in an article. Now, this is across the USA, but it was 1.8 hours was the average touch time for shops across the United States. And in order for a shop to be profitable today, that number is going to have to be 3.5 to 4.5. And they're going to have to spend more time fixing those cars. So efficiencies are going to come into play. You've got to be better at estimating. You've got to be better at parts ordering. You've got to be better at mirror matching your parts. You have to be better at scheduling. These are the things that create efficiencies inside your store. Then when it comes to the repair, listen, I don't know how to repair a car. I don't know what end of the welder to hold. And all I know is that if you give me a paint gun, I'm going to get that paint on everything. So don't give it to me. I'm not a repairer. I know the business side and the relationship side, but the efficiencies on the actual repair, quality of equipment, layout of the shop, training of the staff so that they're not spending 5 hours researching how to fix something. They know how to fix it because they've had that training, and that training is away from work. So when they're in the shop, they're spending most of their day touching cars and actually fixing cars where we all make money. So the efficiencies are really the only way, a shop is going to make money. You got to get work through the door. You have to be efficient, and the staff has to be trained to be efficient.
So I want to add one piece to that, and this is what I think is a difference maker for us. I absolutely agree with everything that Greg has said, but I think in a lot of cases that can be wasted to a certain degree if you don't have solid reporting of what's going on. And the ultimate reporting ends up being timeliness of financial information. If you're on your financial information, you're watching things carefully, then everything that Greg said becomes much more relevant. And I remember when I used to work for Sam Mercanti at CARSTAR years ago, he and I used to argue about this. He'd say, "Oh, I only focused on the margin." I said, "Hey, if you don't have great reporting, you're going to give it away." So I think that's a key that probably isn't talked about enough in this industry in general. I think all the consolidators, whether it's Greg or us or Lyft or everybody, we've all invested heavily in connecting our management systems to our reporting systems. And the reason is because that's truly the way to make sure you're measuring what Greg just talked about. The independents can't afford to do that. Even a simple multi-store operator of 2 or 3 stores probably can't afford to do that now. The technology is getting better. The management systems are being written differently. But if you don't have focus on your reporting, I would say venture to say 60 to 70% of what Greg said will slip through your fingers.
Yeah, you're right. Because if you don't know, I always use the terminology that, when I was younger, I maybe don't look like it today, but I was a pretty good athlete. I played a little bit of baseball, and I knew the rules of the game. I knew how to win. I knew how to hit a ball. I knew how to catch a ball. I knew how to throw a ball. Take those same skills and put me in cricket. I can still throw a ball, hit a ball, and catch a ball, but I don't know the game. I don't know the rules. I don't know the strategy. And if you don't know the strategy to win, you don't have a chance of winning the game. Even if you're the best baseball player in the world and you don't understand the strategy of cricket, you can't win. And Jim's right, 100%. You have to know what you're measuring, when you're measuring, where it's at, and not monthly. This is not even weekly. This is daily. Every morning, our shops get a report on where their KPIs are. Our regional performance managers make sure that they review every morning. Every shop is reviewed by each of our regional performance managers to see if there's trends, to see if there's something going on. And this is where consolidation helps, and banners can help independent shops stay independent yet still thrive in this world. Jim, you're 100% right. If you don't know what you're measuring and you're not watching what you're measuring, you don't have a hope.
Yeah, you're running a rudderless ship. You're a little ship out in the ocean. You don't know where you're going. You got to have a budget and you got to report to it. And it's about accountability. Like we just did an acquisition recently of a small business and fit in the category. He's staying with us as a partner. And he said the other day, he says, "Wow, is this ever different having you guys holding us accountable for everything we're doing?" And the thing is, he's fixing the same number of cars and his bottom line has improved tremendously. And he's even going, "Wow, this is different."
Yeah.
Okay, so let me pivot this a little bit now. We've talked about how the sausage gets made from the inside. Now, Greg, we had a discussion earlier about the consumer, the front-facing people that deal with consumers. Consumer knowledge has changed. Their access to information has changed. How is that changing how you deal with your clients?
Like, again, such a large portion of the people that come through the repair centers today in Canada are directed by the insurance companies. Body shops I have an uncle who's a mortician, and I tell him that we're in the same business. Nobody wants to see us, yet people have to see us. When people come to see us, that people do not go and go, "You know what? It's Saturday. Let's go shopping at a body shop. Let's go see what's going on out there." We don't do that, right? We go look at new TVs. Those are fun things. Body shops are because you backed into a pole and you feel like an idiot. Somebody ran into you in the winter, right? Nobody wants to be there. Your baby's hurt. Oh my God, right? So we get a lot of people that come in that are just, they don't want to be there. They're very distraught because it's the second largest investment most people have in their life is their car next to their home, and it has to be fixed. So how do we deal with those customers? Um, we're connected with the insurance company. When an insurance company sends a customer to us, we're a representative of that insurance company. How we act, how we take care of that customer reflects on the insurance company because they referred the vast majority of them. On the same hand, how those adjusters work with the customers and how they work with the end user reflects on us. We see a million NPS scores where they're mad at the adjuster, and because they're mad at the adjuster, they score us low. We also see where we screwed up, and they score the insurance customer low, company low because of mistakes that we've made. So we're the customer is changed. Yes, they're very knowledgeable on. You can go out and research. I'll tell you what. If we spent 90 seconds on YouTube, you could find out. You know, who was it? Somebody said, "Yeah, I'm a journeyman of YouTube." Everybody thinks they can fix everything because they can see it on YouTube, right? So they have just enough information to be dangerous. They don't want to be there, and they're generally upset that they have to be there, and they've been sent by the big insurance company who is they're not happy with anyways because they always feel like they're paying too much. So it's really changed from I remember when I first started driving, I had my local body shop. I went and saw my friend George Severin. Still remember his name to this day. And he fixed every mistake I ever made on my dad's car before I ever took the car home. And that but so much of that has changed now because it was a couple $100 to get something fixed 30, 35 years ago versus today, it's a couple $1,000s to fix the same thing. So most people are having to do claims or having to do insurance or having to come up with the money. So it's the customer is ever evolving. Jim, I'm sure you've got something to tie in on this. The customer that we deal with today is going to be different in 2 years from now, which is different from 2 years from then. As the information that's available to people to read and to educate themselves gets more and more, people are going to expect more and more. They're going to ask more about specific training, OEM certifications. They're going to be asking more about the equipment and the scans and the recalibration and their cameras and all of that stuff that we do. And we're seeing that more, but I think in 2 years that will be the customer norm.
Yeah, I think there's also a line there somewhere that we can draw based on maybe age or the generation where the expectation because of their understanding of technology has changed. If I was to use my daughter, she doesn't want to talk to anybody. She wants to be able to see everything on her phone. So, her experience in a lot of ways, I think, is going to be evaluated by how, as a collision center, we deal with her with through connection, not so much coming into the shop and being friendly and is the coffee warm and all that stuff. It's going to be, hey, I don't want to talk to anybody. I want to just get this done. I want to be able to access information when I want it. And I think we're just getting started on that. I don't know that we do a great job of that yet, but the technology itself is going to just sort of, as it keeps evolving, we're just going to all have to do more of that, I think. Greg and I don't think I'm too concerned about that necessarily. My first thinking isn't to go to Amazon to buy something. I still want to go to a store. But, people a couple generations behind us, that's not the way they think. They're going to evaluate based on what they see on by doing a quick search electronically.
I'm going to ask
Yep.
you both something. Do you feel that insurance adjusting has to change faster? It's usually behind, just like legislation for laws and government. How it feels like insurance almost having to deal with this is sort of a thorn, which traditionally it always has been because it's somebody in between you and the car getting fixed and the customer. What does insurance have to do? Do we have to see changes or evolutions in the insurance side as well as all the things that you're doing in consolidating and creating a new brand?
Well, I would say the insurance industry is changing almost constantly, and we end up just having to deal with it. And again, as you're asking that question, I think, which province do you want me to answer that
That's
question
true.
in? It's very different in Manitoba, for example, than say Ontario or Alberta, where we also operate. Like it's just amazingly different. MPI thinks very differently. If they don't want you to fix something, they just tell you not to fix it. I don't know what people do about it. It's unbelievable. You don't see things like that so much in Ontario, Alberta. So consolidation is starting to happen on the home side in the insurance companies, right? I think it's going to come pretty quickly now on the in the collision world as well. So that's going to affect what Greg and I and our companies have to deal with, and we'll see how that plays out. But it's going to change something for sure.
Yeah, in any business, if you're not always evolving, you're dying. And insurance companies are consistently evolving. They're changing their scorecards. They're changing how they report almost annually. There's something new. As far as adjusters, unfortunately for us, it seems that automotive adjusting is an entry level position into the insurance company. So there's a lot of training. But listen, I've sat in on training and actually helped with some of that training. They're very thorough. These insurance companies are very thorough because if they get an untrained adjuster, somebody who doesn't know what's going on, it costs them a lot of money. And they spend the money on education and training and follow up and recording and going over stuff. Listen, we're all human. They're human as well. Are they going to make mistakes? Yes. Are they overloaded? Well, look, we had 100,000 claims in Calgary in 2 days because of a hailstorm. I don't care. I don't care who you are or what industry you're in. You're going to be stressed. We're going to be fixing those hail claims for the next 2.5 years. There's just no way around it, right? There's still thousands and thousands of cars that need to be fixed. There's no parts. There's no people. There's not enough shop space. Our shops are booked up for months and months and months because of this. So it doesn't matter. That causes stress on the rest of the country when you get a catastrophe in one area of the country. Listen, insurance companies know their business. They're tight. They're working on slim margins. They keep their people trained, and we're all human. We can only do so much, and they can only do so much. But I agree with Jim. They're ever evolving. They're ever changing, and sometimes it's difficult for us to keep up to their changes. But we have to.
Another example where the insurance companies have really changed the game is they're much more involved on the parts side now, right? And again, it depends on the province, but that's changing the way we have to operate, and it's evolving. They're being much more insistent on the type of part that's used. In some cases, they'll do, and some insurance companies will purchase the part now because they're trying to take away the margin from the collision center.
Really?
These are all the challenges that are in front of us.
Nobody likes having their tools bought for them and brought in and used.
It's happening. Yeah.
So everyone's they're squeaking along on those margins, everybody that's involved in this equation. And okay, that's a good place to ask me the last question I want to speak to both of you about. Going forward, if you're someone who's considering getting into the collision repair, if you're already in it, if you're wondering what to do next, grab your crystal balls. Where does this go? How big could this industry be? It's one of the few left where you still need hands-on. Robots are not coming in to fix that weird, collision repair. So both of you, Jim, you can go first. Where do you see the future of collision repair, and what is the upside to somebody considering this?
Well, I think it comes consolidation means in general we've become better employers. The environment's better, equipment's better, technology's better. So that's all, I think, a positive for someone that wants to enter into the industry. Better training, all those things that Greg talked about. That's one side. I think the elephant in the room that we don't know how this is going to change things is AI, and what that's going to do to the industry. I think right now we're starting to see some change in the estimating process, and we'll see where that goes. And that could be good, or it might not be. We'll have to see. It's hard to understand right now, but I think right now, it's a pretty good industry for people to enter. To a certain degree, it's recession proof because it's really based on miles driven. There's lots of cars on the road, so I think I think that's a good thing. And in general, consolidation means that the companies that are focused on the right spot, I think, are in better shape financially to provide the right resources for the employees.
Greg?
Yeah, those are excellent points. AI is definitely going to change the world. It already has, and it's changed the movie industry, as we've seen, and it's changing ours. We're working very closely with a lot of AI right now, and I think it's a good change because it's going to make us more efficient. It's going to make us tighter, and it's going to make us give us the ability to make more money and be quicker with clients. For young people coming into this industry, it's an amazing opportunity, probably one of the best industries anywhere in the world that has such a vast majority of the aging population leaving and a huge vacuum behind it that can't be filled. I think we're looking right now, the average shop owner is in their late 50s and the average tech is even older. So, and we have so few people coming in. So the techs that are coming in 5 to 10 years from now, they are going to be in the driver's seat. They're going to be in the position where people are courting them. So for young people coming in, my son's an apprentice painter. I've got a nephew that's in it, and I know some other young people that I've helped bring into the industry. I truly believe that it's a great industry for young people that want to work with their hands and work and build and really create something and fix things to come into. Those other people that are more like me, the business mind, that you know what, my hands are nice and soft. They don't do manual labor, right? I'm allergic to manual labor. Those people that want to come in and use their minds and their marketing and their managers, there's going to be some great opportunity for them again, because the population inside of our industry is starting to age. The consolidation of networks, the consolidation of ownership groups. When you start having people that are owning 50 to 80 shops, you're going to have great opportunity for marketing, for management growth, for growth in your career, to learn to move sideways. Maybe you start in finance, but you find that you love HR. There's going to be lots of room for people to move inside organizations. Really, the whole world is becoming about consolidation and growth and how things become more efficient. And our economy has always gone through these cycles. We went through this cycle, shortly after World War II. And then when you moved into the 60s and 70s, you started to see more independence, and then the 80s and 90s, and then, more independence again 20, 25 years ago. This is cyclical. And right now, this cycle is the way the entire world is going, and our industry is heavily focused on it, and we've proven it. There is amazing opportunities. I started off in this industry selling rental cars, and I've been able to, with hard work and dedication and learning and talking to the right people and caring about the right people, I've been able to move up in this industry to a point where you're asking me to sit on this panel and speak to other people. To me, that means that I've done something and I've made it in my career, that people want to know my opinion, whether it means anything or not. But I'm happy to be here, and I see that same opportunity in this industry for a lot of people, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited for young people to come in and invest in shops and join networks like ours or the other banners across the country, because we can help. And we've got some fantastic young owners. I got, Mason in Prince George, Kent in Medicine Hat. These guys are younger than my kids, and they're owning shops and they're doing phenomenal things. These guys are the future of the country. And I'm Jim, I'm sure you've got a number of people in your organization that are under 30, and you're looking at them that they're going to be the ones doing these talks in 10 years, right? There's fantastic operators out there. Bennett with CSN, young, intelligent, motivated people. And listen, I just named 3 people that I happen to know personally and have talked to this week because they came to mind. But if we sat down and talked about it, there's hundreds of them in this industry, and there's room for more.
I like that, room for more.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Yep.
That's awesome. I'd like to thank Greg Wing and Jim Bethune on behalf of AIA Canada. I'm Lorraine Sommerfeld. This has been Curbside Chat. Thank you so much for your insight and your honesty. Have a good day.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you.